దూర విద్యా విధానంలో డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ దేశంలోనే మొట్టమొదటి సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం. దాదాపు 2.5 దశాబ్దాలుగా దూర విద్యా విధానం ద్వారా కంప్యూటర్ కోర్సును అనుసంధానం చేస్తూ బీఏ, బీకామ్, బీఎస్సీ డిగ్రీ కోర్సులను అందిస్తోంది. పోస్ట్ గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ స్థాయి, డిగ్రీ, డిప్లొమా స్థాయి కోర్సులను ఔత్సాహికులైన విద్యార్థులకు అందిస్తోంది. డెవలప్మెంట్ స్టడీస్లో సెంటర్ ఫర్ ఎకనామిక్స్ అండ్ సోషల్ స్టడీస్ ద్వారా ఎంఫిల్, పీహెచ్డీతో పాటు విశ్వవిద్యాలయమే స్వయంగా దూర విద్యా విధాన అంశంపైన పీహెచ్డీ వంటి పరిశోధన కోర్సులు ప్రవేశపెట్టింది. సుమారు 4.5 లక్షల మంది విద్యార్థులు ఈ విశ్వవిద్యాలయం నుంచి ఉన్నత విద్యావకాశాలు పొందుతున్నారు. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం స్థానికంగా స్వయం బోధనా పద్ధతిలో ముద్రణ రూపంలో రూపొందించిన కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అందిస్తోంది. కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అధ్యయనానికి సహకరించే విధంగా రేడియో, టెలివిజన్ పాఠ్యాంశాల ఆధారంగా కార్యక్రమాలు ప్రసారం చేస్తోంది. అధ్యయన కేంద్రాల ద్వారా ఏర్పాటు చేసే సలహా సంసర్గ తరగతులు, సైన్స్ ప్రాక్టికల్ సౌకర్యాలు విద్యార్థులకు స్వయం అధ్యయనానికి ఒక చక్కటి అవకాశం. ఇవి విద్యార్థి సమీపంలో ఉండే అధ్యయన కేంద్రం నుంచే పొందొచ్చు.
Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to today's teleconference on Hilbert spaces. This is taken from the course Functional Analysis of our second year MSc Mathematics and Applied Mathematics programs. To present this topic to us, we have two subject experts. One is Dr. C. Govardhan from Osmania University, Hyderabad. He is associate professor there. And there is Dr. K. Vijayalakshmi from Laila Academy, Secunderabad. Welcome you, sir and madam. This program is for 1 hour. In the first 40 minutes, the experts will speak on Hilbert spaces, and in the final 20 minutes, our students may raise their doubts. And our students may call on the following phone numbers: 040-2703-1431, 2703-1432, 040-2703-1433. Well, to know Hilbert spaces, we need to know vector spaces, or also called linear spaces, and inner product spaces. A vector space is an algebraic entity. If we have a non-intercept V, it has to satisfy two binary operations, plus called addition and dot called scalar multiplication, and with respect to plus, V has to be an abelian group, and with respect to scalar multiplication, it has to satisfy certain distribution properties. If V is such a one, we call it a vector space or a linear space. And here the scalar multiplication is a mapping from K cross V into V. Here K is scalar field. We take the field of real numbers or the field of complex numbers C. Well-known examples of vector spaces are R over R, that is real line over the real field, and Euclidean plane, that is R2 over R, and the Euclidean space R3 over R, and we have Cn over C, where n is any natural number, and Rn over R, and so on. Well, the space in which we live is the three-dimensional space. If we take any two vectors, x bar and y bar, say we can take x bar to be the order tuple a1, a2, a3, and y cap to be the order tuple b1, b2, b3. We can add these two vectors x bar and y bar. We define x cap plus y cap is equal to a1 plus b1, a2 plus b2, and a3 plus b3. To add two vectors, what we do is we add the corresponding coordinates, that is component wise addition or coordinate wise addition is the addition that is defined here. What happens is, in the three-dimensional space, if we take two vectors x bar and y bar, right, and their resultant, that is addition, becomes a diagonal of the parallelogram formed by these two vectors x bar and y bar. And when we do scalar multiplication, when alpha is a real taken from the scalar field, and if we multiply vectors in three-dimensional space, and if we multiply x cap, alpha into x cap is alpha into order triplet a1, a2, a3. That is defined as alpha a1, alpha a2, alpha a3. So what happens is we multiply a vector by a number alpha. So if mod alpha is greater than 1, the magnitude alpha of alpha a bar increases, and if mod alpha is less than 1, the magnitude of alpha a bar decreases compared to that of x cap, and mod alpha is 1, the magnitude remains. It in fact is called dilation. And well, another important feature of the Euclidean space is the geometry of it. Vector space is an algebraic structure. We also know geometric structure of the Euclidean space. In the Euclidean space, given any 2 points, we know the distance between them, and we know angles of any given 2 vectors or any given 2 lines, and we have the Pythagorean principle there, and we have the parallelogram law there, and we have mutually perpendicular system of coordinate axes. Well, the question is, can we have this geometric structure also on a vector space? To answer this, we look at the inner product of any 2 vectors. Given 2 vectors x cap and y cap, we can find their dot product. That is, x cap dot y cap is equal to a1 b1, a2 b2, a1 b1 plus a2 b2 plus a3 b3. We multiply component wise and add them. That is nothing but is the dot product of x cap and y cap. It is in fact is equal to mod x cap mod y cap cos theta, where theta is the angle between the vectors x cap and y cap. So from this, we can compute theta to be the cosine inverse of x cap dot y cap divided by mod x cap and mod y cap. From here, we get motivated to define a function called inner product. Inner product is a function defined from the Cartesian product V cross V, where V is a linear space into the scalar field. So, we wish this inner product to satisfy the positive definiteness, that is, it has to be 0 if and only if that vector is 0, and then we ask for the linearity in the first variable. That is, inner product of x cap plus y cap comma z cap is equal to inner product of x cap z cap plus inner product of y cap z cap, and inner product of alpha times x bar and y cap is equal to alpha times of inner product of x cap and y cap. That is, we are asking for linearity in the first coordinate of this scalar of this inner product. Inner product is a function from V cross V into K. So it works on an ordered pair. Well, and we further ask for the conjugate symmetry. We ask for the conjugation of x cap and y cap is equal to y cap x cap. So under these, we will see that this kind of an inner product function called inner product helps us to deal with certain angles. In fact, we deal very much with orthogonality called the right angles. Well, in this conference, we speak on Hilbert spaces, we look at definitions of Hilbert spaces, and we look at examples of Hilbert spaces, some counterexamples, and then we look at the Pythagorean principle. Pythagorean principle holds good in Euclidean plane, and in fact, we will see that out of an inner product, we can define a norm. Once we have a norm, out of that we can define a distance metric. Out of norm, we can define a metric. Once we have a metric structure, we know the geometric structure of this inner product space. So we look at the Pythagorean principle, and then parallelogram law, and then the polarization identity, and then we move to orthogonality, orthonormality, and finally we move to Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization process, and if time allows, we move to Ritchie-Fisher theorem. So now I welcome Dr. Govardhan.
Thank you, Srinivas. And we have studied linear spaces at length during our graduation. And when you look into your first year courses, there was real analysis. In the real analysis course, we have studied structures with distance imposed on them, called metric structures. In the linear space, we have got algebraic structures. In the case of algebraic structures, we do not have any kind of geometrical things. When we talk about metric spaces, we do not have anything something like algebraic structure on such spaces. A simple question arises: can we look into those spaces in which some kind of metric structure can be imposed? Some kind of algebraic structure can also be imposed. The answer is affirmative, but not in all cases. But in some special cases, we can put these two structures together so that we can read out so many things in such spaces. With regard to such spaces, we have studied Banach spaces in earlier classes, in earlier talks. A Banach space is nothing but a non-empty set X equipped with a norm function. Norm is a function defined from X into the scalar field K, satisfying certain properties like positive definiteness, triangle inequality, and so on. Any such a typical mapping from X into K, of course, here K is restricted to not any general field of scalars, but we confine to either field of scalars of real numbers or complex numbers. When a typical X with such a norm is given, we say that that is a normal linear space. With this typical norm, we can produce a distance like function also on x square by defining d of x comma y is equal to norm of x minus y. So, this way of defining dxy leads to a distance structure on x. Thus, we can say every normed space is a metric space. When you talk about metric space, we can do so many things. We can talk about sequences.
Sir, this D, does it become a metric?
Yeah, certainly that becomes metric. If I make use norm to give a definition for dxy as norm of x minus y, that leads to a metric structure on x. Thus, every normal linear space can be treated to be a metric space in its own right. Once you have got a metric structure on this normal space, which is basically a linear space, now so many ideas of linear algebra and so many ideas of metric space theory can be seen on a single space. That is what we have seen in the case of Banach spaces. Banach spaces happen to be a special kind of normal linear spaces in which as a metric space, it should be a complete metric space. In the sense, every Cauchy sequence must be a convergent one. If such a space is this normal linear space, we call it a Banach space, honoring Banach. Now, we are trying to look into another special kind of spaces named after David Hilbert, a 19th century German mathematician, and who has posed 23 problems in the World Congress of Mathematicians, International Congress of Mathematicians held in Paris in the year 1900. He has posed 23 problems, and funny thing is that most of the problems are open till today. And in fact, he challenged the whole world of mathematicians that these 23 problems are going to engage totality of mathematicians for the coming century. In fact, that is proved to be so. Even after passing the 20th century, we are now there in 21st century. Still, most of the problems are await solutions for those problems. Interested can look into the internet. You can see full length mention of these 23 problems. And in the first year course, we have seen a special case of Hilbert's last 23rd problem also in the course of abstract algebra. Let us leave that aspect aside for a while. And now we shall try to look into a special kind of linear spaces over the field of scalars being either real numbers or field of complex numbers with a typical type of structure imposed on it in the name of, as Dr. Srinivas spoke, and namely inner product. We shall define inner product as follows: on a linear space over a field of scalars k, where k is either R or C. Let us just have a look at the definition of an inner product on X. Let us look at this slide. An inner product on a vector space X is a mapping from X cross X into the scalar field K, such that it enjoys so many properties. Look at this slide. And these are the properties which are to be possessed by that particular product. We denote the inner product of x comma y by bracket x comma y, and this x comma x should be greater than or equal to 0, x comma x should be equal to 0 if and only if x is equal to 0. You must make a distinction between these two here. X comma x equal to 0 is either that's real 0 and that x equal to 0 is the vector 0. So, there is a distinction between them. We are not making a distinction. Context itself is going to make the things clear. That is why we are not worried about that. And third property is this one, x plus y comma z should be equal to x comma z plus y comma z, verbally speaking, and this amounts to say that inner product is linear in the first variable or in the first coordinate. And for any scalar alpha, alpha x comma y is equal to alpha times x comma y, and these two conditions put together say that the inner product is a typical function on x square which is linear in the first variable, and inner product of x comma y should be the conjugate of the inner product of y comma x. If these few conditions are fulfilled, we say that this particular bracket x comma y or that bracket function is an inner product on x square. Any set, any linear space x over the field of scalars k equipped with such an inner product is called an inner product space. We can quote numerous examples of such inner product spaces. I request madam to convey some examples on such spaces.
As an example of inner product spaces, we consider x is equal to r power n, the set of all n tuples alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. alpha n of real numbers where n is any positive integer. Then x is a real vector space with respect to addition and multiplication of vectors given by alpha 1 comma alpha 2, etc. alpha n plus alpha beta 1 comma beta 2, etc. beta n is equal to alpha 1 plus beta 1 comma alpha 2 plus beta 2, etc. alpha n plus beta n. And for any lambda real number, lambda into alpha 1 comma alpha 2, etc. alpha n is equal to lambda alpha 1 comma lambda alpha 2, etc. lambda a n, and we lambda alpha n. We know that this is a x is a real vector space. Now, we denote the element of x, elements of x by alpha cap. Just for notation, we take alpha cap is equal to alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. alpha n ordered n tuple. Now, if you take beta cap, it will be beta 1, beta 2, etc. beta n. Now, we define a product alpha cap comma beta cap is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I beta I. Now, we prove that the inner product alpha comma beta alpha cap comma beta cap is an inner product. For that, first we look into the property of non-negativity. Suppose if you take the inner product of alpha cap comma alpha cap, it is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I square. Because it is a positive number, always alpha cap comma alpha cap, it is always greater than or equal to
beta
0.
becomes alpha I.
Yes, here beta is equal to alpha. Further, you have if alpha cap comma alpha cap equal to 0, then sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I square equal to 0, if and only if alpha I equal to 0. What does it mean? If you are taking n tuple as alpha, that 0 vector is alpha cap is nothing but 0 0 etc. 0 is the 0 vector of this x. Now, if alpha, beta, gamma are any 3 elements of x, then alpha is an ordered n tuple, beta, gamma these are all n tuples given by alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. alpha n. Beta is beta cap is equal to beta 1, beta 2, etc. beta n, and gamma cap equal to gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n. If you find alpha cap plus beta cap comma gamma cap, that is inner product of alpha cap plus beta cap and gamma cap, it is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I plus beta I into gamma I, which is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I gamma I plus sigma I is equal to 1 to n beta I gamma I. Again, according to our definition of inner product, it is nothing but inner product of alpha cap and gamma cap plus inner product of beta cap and gamma cap. Further, lambda alpha cap comma beta cap, that is the inner product of lambda alpha cap comma beta cap is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n lambda alpha I beta I. That lambda can be, as it is a scalar, we can write it as lambda into
I.
Yes, lambda is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I beta I, which is nothing but lambda into the inner product of alpha cap comma beta cap. and you have alpha cap comma beta cap. The inner product of alpha cap beta cap is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I into beta I. Here alphas and betas are real numbers, and we know that multiplication is commutative in real numbers. Therefore, the inner product of alpha cap comma beta cap, which is sigma I is equal to 1 to n alpha I beta I, is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n beta I alpha I, which is nothing but the inner product of beta cap comma alpha cap. So, here X is a inner product space, and also here we have to make a note that always an inner product space induces a norm on that vector space X, given by norm of X is equal to square root of X comma X, and metric as d of x y is equal to norm of X minus y.
Madam, here for the induced norm,
Yes.
you are defining norm X to be square root of inner product of X
X
and
comma X.
Do we have to take only non-negative values, because we expect the norm to be non-negative?
Yes.
So, here
Yes.
for square root we have to take only non-negative values. We should
Non-negative
not take
values.
negative values.
Why? Because always X comma X is greater than 0, it is always a positive. Therefore, you can take for X not equal to 0, we take norm of X is equal to square root of X comma X.
Non-negative square root of
No,
x.
we don't take
Yes.
negative values.
Negative
Non-negative
values,
square root
we
of
won't
x
take.
comma x.
Okay.
So, that typical norm is going to induce a metric defined by d of x y is equal to norm x minus y, which is defined as non-negative square root of x minus y comma x minus
X
y.
minus y.
Now, a question comes in. Now, you can see that this is going to give you a norm, and as such it is going to be a normal linear space.
Yes.
When this becomes a normal linear space, a question now comes in, can this be made into a Banach space?
Yes.
That means, can we make this one into a complete metric space with the metric induced by norm and norm being induced by the inner product? So, if the answer is yes, suppose this particular inner product space with such a metric D induced by norm, norm in turn induced by the inner product is a complete metric space, then we call it a Hilbert space. We
So,
call
here
such a
we are
space to be a-
defining a norm out of an inner product.
Yeah.
We are calling it norm induced by the inner product.
Yes. Yeah.
And out of norm, we are
norm.
defining a metric.
Yeah.
And in metric, if every quotient sequence converges, we say we call such an inner product space to be
A complete
a
space.
Hilbert
Yes.
space.
Yes.
Right.
But if we take the set of all continuous functions on A B and we define norm of x as maximum of norm x t, then it will not define that norm cannot be induced from a inner product.
Oh.
Therefore, C of A B is not a Hilbert space.
But now we can try to look into another very interesting thing in the case of Hilbert spaces. Particularly, we can talk about a concept, namely orthogonality concept, which is generalized in the case of Hilbert space theory. Hilbert spaces is that's going to give you a concept which generalizes the orthogonality of vectors. Suppose X is an IPS over the scalar field K, IPS is an inner product space over the scalar field K, and X and Y be any two vectors in X. We say that X is orthogonal to Y if inner product of X comma Y is equal to 0. That is, when the inner product of two vectors happen to be 0, we call them to be orthogonal to each other. This typical orthogonality is going to be a typical concept. It generalizes the orthogonality
Yes.
that is there in our mind through the elementary geometry. That typical geometrical idea is generalized in the name of orthogonality of two vectors in the inner product spaces. And
Here one more property we observe is, here always x comma x equal to 0 if and only if x equal to 0.
Right.
And whenever the orthogonal x is orthogonal to y, y is orthogonal to x. So, what we can say means here the relation orthogonality, it cannot be reflexive and cannot be transitive, but it satisfies the symmetric property.
But there is a particular class of subsets of Hilbert space play a dominant role, namely orthonormal sets. There are special types of sets in H which are going to be mutually orthogonal. Any two elements of that set is mutually orthogonal, and they are of unit length. And we define that norm of x of any vector in the Hilbert space to be length of the vector. And then we call some subset of a Hilbert space H to be an orthonormal set in case x is orthogonal to y for any pair of elements x not equal to y in S, and each vector in X must have norm equal to 1. When these two properties are fulfilled with the elements of a set S, we call it an orthonormal set in the Hilbert space H. And this orthonormality leads to very interesting kind of properties in the Hilbert spaces.
So,
particularly
here, in an inner product space, do we have a vector which is orthogonal to every vector?
Yeah, trivial vector 0 vector is going to be the one which
Yes.
is orthogonal to any vector.
That is inner product
Yeah.
of 0 vector and some
any
x
other
square
vector is always 0.
is 0.
Is always 0. Therefore, 0 is a vector which is orthogonal to any vector in the Hilbert space.
And norm of 0 vector is 0.
0.
So it can't be an orthonormal vector.
It's not an orthonormal vector. It's only a vector which is orthogonal to every other vector. But then
Orthonormal set contains set of all unit vectors which are orthogonal to each other.
each other. Another point is that no such set can contain 0.
Yes.
That's another interesting thing.
So
You can
orthogonal
note.
set as
Yes.
the set of orthogonal
Yes.
vectors is one more is having one more element than those of
Yes.
orthonormal vectors.
Yeah.
Suppose if H is any Hilbert space and it contains non-zero vector, at least one non-zero vector also it will have contains at least one orthonormal vector. Suppose if you take y is equal to x is any non-zero vector in a Hilbert space, then if you take y is equal to x by norm x, obviously norm y will be 1.
1.
And here
So it is an orthonormal set.
We are looking at distinct vectors
Yeah.
and asking for orthogonality between
Yes,
them, not
exactly.
for the same vectors.
Not for the same vector space.
Yeah, that we should be
Yes.
careful
And
with
this
that.
Yes.
typical concept is going to generalize that concept of Pythagoras theorem, which is available in the Euclidean geometry,
Yes.
Euclidean plane geometry. You have that theorem. In any right angle triangle, sum of the squares of the base and height is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. That particular theorem gets generalized in the case of these Hilbert spaces. Let x comma y be two vectors in an inner product space X. I am talking about inner product spaces. It's true in Hilbert space as well. So that x is orthogonal to y. Then we can see that norm x plus y whole square is equal to norm x plus norm y whole square. You can interpret this in geometrically also. Take x vector and y vector. X plus y is going to be the diagonal. So length of the diagonal, square of the diagonal is equal to sum of the squares of these two sides. It's some kind of generalization of the Pythagoras theorem. You can look into the lines of the proof. It's quite easy. Expand norm x plus y whole square, which is equal to x plus y comma x plus y, which is by using linearity in the first variable of the inner product. This can be rewritten as x comma x plus x comma y plus y comma x plus y comma y, which amounts to say that because x is orthogonal to y, inner product x comma y is 0 and inner product y comma x is also equal to 0. Therefore, these intermediate terms become 0. You are left with x comma x plus y comma y, which is nothing but norm x square plus norm y square. It means that square of the norm of x plus y is equal to sum of the squares of norms of x and y. This is known with the name Pythagoras. Same name is given to this result because this resembles our Pythagoras theorem in the Euclidean geometry. You can have another very interesting property, namely parallelogram, which is also available in the.
Sir, regarding this Pythagorean principle, can we extend it to n number of orthogonal vectors?
Yeah, that also is the same thing I'm going to talk about. If E is an orthonormal set, then we can see the distance between any two such vectors is going to be square root of 2. That's one interesting property. You start with any orthonormal set in an IPS.
They
space.
can't be as at their liberty.
Yes.
They are fixed at
something
constant
which cannot be visualized so easily, but it is to be believed. You take any two vectors in any orthonormal set, they will maintain exact same distance. So any two vectors in any orthonormal set in an IPS, they maintain same distance, namely square root of 2. You can just see very easily. Suppose x and y are two vectors drawn from some orthonormal set E. Let us see the distance between them, square of the distance between them. A norm x minus 1 whole square is equal to x minus y comma x minus y, which is equal to x comma x minus x comma y minus y comma x plus y comma y. Because x is taken, x and y are chosen from E, they are basically orthogonal, and hence x comma y inner product is 0 and y comma x inner product is also equal to 0. Thus leading to norm x square plus norm y square. Because vectors are chosen from the orthonormal set, each vector is of unit length. This says that square of norm of x minus y whole square is equal to 2. As such, norm of x minus y would be equal to root 2. This is something which, geometrically speaking, this looks something different, but it is to be believed, right? There is another very interesting kind of a type of generalization to n number of vectors similar to that Pythagoras theorem. So let x1, x2, xn be a finite orthogonal set in an inner product space X. Then you can see that square of norm of sum of the vectors x1, x2, xn is equal to sum of the squares of these individual vectors. So the property, again, you just imitate the proof of parallelogram law or this particular one. You can get the proof directly. The only thing is that you have to make use of orthogonality condition for the vectors, and that's it. these two with any orthogonal set, please. It not necessarily orthonormal. It's true with any orthogonal set. This is going to happen. So for any set of vectors which happen to be which form an orthogonal set in an IPS, you can have this conclusion. So there are some other laws, very interesting laws pertaining to these inner products, which will be spoken by Madam.
Now, for any inner product space, the parallelogram law, by direct evaluation, we can evaluate norm. We have seen that norm x plus y square, how to find norm x minus y whole square. Here, norm x plus y square plus norm x minus y whole square is equal to 2 into norm x square plus norm y square, which is known as parallelogram law. And Apollonius identity, it is also true in any inner product spaces, which is given for any x, y, z belongs to x. We have norm of z minus x whole square plus norm of z minus y square is equal to half into norm x minus y square plus 2 into norm z minus half of x plus y square.
Madam, one point. In an inner product space, we have computed norm of x plus y whole square.
Yes.
And then we have computed norm of x minus y whole square, where x and y are coming
Yes.
from the inner product space. We may call them x cap and y cap.
Yes.
And we have added them and obtained, it is twice the sum of norm x square and norm y square.
Yes, square.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
That is also true with the case of norms available in inner product space as well.
Yes.
I thought of asking something. Okay, madam, please go ahead. I'll again come back.
And also, any inner product of x and y can be obtained by 1/4 of norm x plus y square minus norm x minus y whole square.
But there is a restriction. There is
Yes.
a restriction only when that
Yes.
IPS happens to be a real IPS. This
Real
can be done.
IPS.
Otherwise,
Otherwise, polarization
small modifications are to
identities.
be made.
Yes.
Right.
For polarization identities, we obtain real part of the inner product of x comma y as 1/4 of norm x plus
Yes.
y square minus norm x minus y square. And imaginary part of x comma y
is equal
can
to
be
1/4
obtained
of
from the formula 1/4 of norm x plus
iy
iy
whole
whole square minus norm x minus iy whole square.
That's
Okay,
right.
madam. So, in an inner product space, we have the parallelogram law holding good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it is a necessary condition.
Yes.
Parallelogram law is a necessary condition on part of the inner
Yes,
product space.
yes.
How about the converse? Like I have an inner product, I am getting a norm induced by that.
Yes.
Should it always satisfy the parallelogram law?
Certainly.
Or rather, in other words, if I have a normal space, can I get it by induced by an inner product?
Yes, just now I told in the previous discussion that if you take the set of all continuous functions on AB and you define norm of x is equal to maximum of mod xt, and we take the functions xt, xt is 1, and we take y of t is equal to some t into b minus a by b minus a. Then in that case, if you take norm x plus y, you will get it as 2, norm x minus y, we get it as 1. In that case, if you take norm x plus y whole square plus norm x minus y whole square, you will get it as 5. But twice of norm x square plus norm y square will be 4 only, because here norm x is 1, norm y is also 1. So, here the parallelogram law is not satisfying. So, what we can say, the set of continuous functions on AB is not a Hilbert space.
So that norm is not getting induced
Yes.
by an
Norm
inner
is
product
not-
space,
yes.
an inner product.
Yes.
So that vector space can't be an inner product space
product.
at all.
Yes.
So it can't be a Hilbert space.
Yes.
Yes.
So, here what we can conclude, Hilbert spaces are inner product spaces which are complete.
Yes, now, do we have any connection between orthonormal sets or orthogonal sets and linear independence property?
Yes.
Certainly, sir. There is a connection. You start with any independent set in an IPS. I am not even talking about Hilbert spaces. You take any general inner product space, and you start with any linearly independent set in it. We can come out with an orthonormal set out of this. There is a specific procedure of finding such an orthonormal set out of given an independent set of vectors in an inner product space. There is a specific procedure. That procedure is called Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization process.
So
The
before going
systematic
to
procedure
that,
is there.
given a set of orthonormal vectors.
Yes.
Do they possess linear independence property?
Definitely.
certainly. That's always true.
Every
That's
set of
always true.
orthogonal vectors is linearly independent,
Independent.
and orthonormal set of vectors also linearly independent.
Yes.
Clearly we can prove. We know that the set of vectors is linearly independent if a1 alpha 1 plus a2 alpha 2 etc. an alpha n equal to 0 implies a1 equal to 0, a2 equal to 0
Because of
etc. an
orthogonal
equal to
dependence.
0.
Because of
So we
orthogonal
take the
dependence.
inner product of sigma I is equal to 1 to n ai alpha I comma alpha I.
I. That leads to alpha
So
is
that
equal
you
to
will
0.
get each ai
Alpha
is
is
0 for I is equal to 1
1
to
to
n.
n.
And in case of orthonormal sets, you have norm xi is always 1.
Yeah.
There also we will get the independence of orthonormal vectors.
So therefore, every orthonormal set of vectors or any orthogonal set of vectors, they are always linearly independent, but not every linearly independent set is of that particular kind.
Yes.
But certainly, out of every linearly independent set of vectors, one can come across with such an orthonormal set. That is the beauty.
Yes.
So such a beautiful process is explained by two people. One is Graham, the other one is Schmidt. Schmidt, a German mathematician, and Graham, a Danish mathematician of 19th century. They have given a nice procedure of finding an orthonormal set out of a given
Before that, we
orthogonal set.
see one example of orthonormal set. What will be the structure of orthonormal set? Suppose if you take L2, inner product space L2 of all scalar sequences alpha n such that sigma n is equal to 1 to infinity mod alpha n square is finite. Their inner product is defined by inner product of x comma y is sigma I is equal to 1 to infinity alpha n into beta n bar. Here we are x is equal to alpha n and y and beta n, these two are x n and y n are sequences in L2. And if you take E n, generally we take delta I j. What do you mean by delta I j? Which is equal to 1 whenever I equal to j, equal to 0 when I not equal to j. So if you consider the set of all vectors, the sequence of vectors E n, that means which contains 1 in nth place, all other elements are 0.
Yeah.
For example, for R cube, it will be 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 like that. So definitely it is all vectors are unit vectors. That means norm E n is 1 for every n, and also E I is equal the inner product of E I and E j is always 0.
0.
So you
For I
can
not
take
equal
it
to
as orthonormal set. This
Orthonormal
is an
set, vectors in
example of
L2.
orthonormal set. Like that we can give other examples of orthonormal set also.
And in R3 we have the
Yes.
usual basis vectors I bar, j bar, k bar.
Yes.
They themselves are orthonormal.
Yes.
I bar dot j bar is 0, I bar dot k bar is 0, j bar dot k bar is 0, and they are unit
Yes.
vectors. Okay, ma'am.
There is a nice procedure of finding
Yeah. Let's move
linearly,
to
that means
GSOP.
orthonormal set by using a linearly independent set of vectors in an IPS. Madam, please explain that method.
Yes.
Let me give some examples of that also.
This is given by Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization process. Let x n be a sequence of linearly independent vectors in an inner product space X. Then there exists an orthonormal sequence y n of vectors in X such that for any natural number n, the span of x1, x2, etc. xn is the same as span of y1, y2, etc. yn. That means, here we are going to construct one orthonormal set from the given set of independent vectors such that it lives in belongs to the span of y1, y, that means the span of x1, x2, etc. xn is the same as the span of y1, y2, etc. yn. We know the span, linear span means set of all vectors of the form a1 alpha 1 plus a2 alpha 2 etc. an alpha n, where a1, a2 etc. an are scalars, alpha 1, alpha 2 etc. alpha n are vectors. For this, to construct orthonormal vectors, first let x1, x2 etc. xn be any basis. That means, it is a set of all linearly independent vectors and the norm of each and every vector is 1. First step, we consider y1 is equal to x1 by norm x1. We know what is norm, what we defined already. I told you that
So non-negative
norm
square
x
root of
is
x1
equal to
comma
square
x1.
root of
Non-negative square root.
inner product of x comma x, and we take z2 as x2 minus the inner product of x2 y1 into y1. Here we have to observe that z2 cannot be equal to 0. What will happen if z2 equal to 0? Then
X and
x2
y.
minus the inner product of x2 y1 comma y1 will be 0. So that means x2 is equal to the inner product of x2 y1 into norm x1 by x1. So, this will contradict the fact that our set is linearly independent. Therefore, Z2 definitely not equal to 0. Why I am mentioning here? Suppose if I want to define the norm, means definitely it cannot be 0. Therefore, as Z2 not equal to 0, you can define Y2 is equal to Z2 by norm Z2. Similarly, you can define Z3. Z3 can be defined as x3 minus x3 y1, inner product of x3 y1 into y1 minus inner product of x3 y2 into y2. Here also Z3 is perpendicular to y1 as well as y2. And it cannot be equal to 0 for the same reason. Yes. So, what will happen if if it is equal to 0, it will be contradicting the fact that the set is linearly independent. Now, here we take y3 is equal to Z3 by norm Z3. So, by induction we can go on constructing the vectors like this. Here we take Zn is equal to xn minus sigma I is equal to 1 to n, sigma I is equal to 1 to n minus 1, the inner product of xn yi into yi is equal to 0. Here also Zn not equal to 0. Otherwise, what will happen? Xn minus sigma I is equal to 1 to n minus 1, the inner product of xn yi into yi is equal to 0. That means, xn belongs to the linear span of y1, y2 etc. yn minus 1, already y's are in the span of x1. Yes. So, what does it mean? Xn is the linear combination of its preceding vectors. Yes. So, again it will become the set is linearly dependent. So, this is a contradiction.
So, you are using the induction principle there?
Yes. Therefore, always we can construct an orthonormal set from the given set of linearly independent vectors.
Okay. So, now
we can look into one or two examples of finding out this.
That will
and
visualize
one more
the
thing
theorem.
here I want to notice, there are complete orthonormal sets also. Complete orthonormal set.
Madam, we will move to complete orthonormal sets after looking at the construction of orthonormal sets out of linear independent vectors.
Yeah. Yes. Let us look into one or two simple examples of constructing orthonormal sets out of given orthogonal given independent sets in an inner product space. Let us take our usual inner product space of R square over R, and let us look into this particular basis 1 comma 1 0 comma 1 consisting two vectors v1 and v2. If I look into this set of two vectors, it is a linearly independent set of vectors. Certainly you can say that these two are not orthogonal vectors. So, now let us try to make use this Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization process to find out the typical unit vectors which are orthonormal. For that, what we do is we take W1 is equal to V1 is equal to 1 comma 1. So, W2 to be equal to V2 minus inner product of V2 comma W1 by norm of W1 comma W1 into W1, which is something like this. Then what we do is you divide this vector W1 by its norm and W2 by its norm. Say U1 is equal to W1 by norm W1 is nothing but 1 comma 1 by its length is nothing but square root of 1 plus 1. It's 1 by 1 by root 2 times 1 comma 1, that's what we get. So, the U1 is then going to become root 2 by 2 comma root 2 by 2, and similarly U2, let us take W2 by norm W2, so that is going to become 1 by norm of the W2. Norm of W2 is 1 by the square root of 1 by 4 plus 1 by 4, that is half, that is 1 by root 2. So, 1 by root 2 is going to be the length of W2, and multiply that one with the vector W2. So, that we get root 2 times minus half comma half, which is minus root 2 by 2 comma root 2 by 2. So, this U1 comma U2 set is going to be the orthonormal set arising out of that independent set B given here. You can verify whether these two vectors are orthonormal or not. You can say that these two are of unit length. Moreover, if you take the inner product of these two, here inner product in R square over R is nothing but usually of finding products of two ordered pairs coordinate wise.
Yes.
So, let us multiply coordinate y, root 2 by 2 into minus root 2 by 2 is minus 1 and minus 1 by 2, and root 2 by 2 into root 2 by 2 is again plus 1 by 2, plus 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2 is 0. And length of each of these two vectors by the very construction, you can see that they are of unit length, and hence we could construct very easily, of course, in the case of R square over R. But what if I go through a non-trivial example? It is quite easy to construct such an example. But if I look into a special type of inner products how do we go about constructing such orthonormal sets out of given independent set? Let's try to look into the application of this Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization process to find out a set of orthonormal vectors corresponding to this independent set B, which also becomes a basis for the set of all polynomials, real polynomials over the interval -1 to 1. In the inner product space of a set of all polynomials of degree at most 2 over the interval -1 to 1, inner product is given by bracket p comma q is equal to integral -1 to 1 px qx dx. With this one as the inner product, now we shall try to find out corresponding the orthonormal set of vectors. If B is the set 1 comma x square, say v1 comma v2 comma v3, then we shall take w1 to be v1 is equal to 1. But remember, while constructing u1, you have to divide that w1 with the norm w1.
Yes.
Here norm w1 is
One.
nothing but integral minus not 1.
Okay.
Integral -1 to 1,
Yes.
px is equal to 1 here,
Yes.
qx is also equal to 1,
1 here.
dx. Therefore, integral -1 to 1, 1 dx comes in.
Yes.
So, that is
So
norm of 1 whole square, that norm of that w1 whole square.
Yes.
So, therefore, it's equal to how much?
2.
Yes, exactly 2. So, its norm is going to be square root of 2. So, square root of 2 becomes the norm here, unlike in the previous case.
Yes.
Yeah, right. That is the norm. 1 by root 2 is going to root 2 is going to become the norm of the vector 1. So, we have found that u to be 1 by root 2. Very good. How to go about that second w2? So, that w2 is nothing but v2 minus v2 comma w1 by norm of w1 times w1, which is our v2 here is the polynomial x. X minus this v2 comma w1 is 0, 0 by 2 times 1, which is x only. Again, you need to find out the norm of w2. w2 being here x, how to find out the norm of that w2? So, norm w2 whole square is equal to -1 to 1 w2x into w2x dx.
Yes.
w2 here is x.
X.
So, -1 to 1 x square dx. X square integral happens to be x cube by 3.
Yes.
X cube by 3 over -1 to 1 happens to be something like 2 by 3. So, that 2 by 3 happens to be the square of norm of w2. So, it is a square root, namely square root of 2 by 3 would become norm of w2. That is what we get. And anyhow, we got the w2 will be equal to x. Now, you have this u2 is equal to root 3 by 2 times x. How to find the third one? The third one is this one, w3 is equal to v3 minus this v3 w1 by norm w1 w1, v3 w2 by norm w2 into w2. This is going to become ultimately, after simplification, x square minus 1 by 3 comes in. Now, again similarly, you have to find out the norm of w2 by going through this one. Norm w3 whole square is equal to -1 to 1 x square minus 1 by 3 whole square dx. So, with a small bit of computations in the integration, definite integral, we arrive at the conclusion that the norm of w3 is going to become square root of 8 by 45. So, whereby you can see that u3 is going to be equal to so much. Now, a question comes in, okay, we have got 3 vectors u1, u2, u3 here.
Yes.
Can we check that these 3 form orthogonal set of vectors? You can see u1 comma u2 inner product. What is that you have to do? To find out u1 comma u2 inner product, you have to -1 to 1
P of x into q
u1
of
x into utx dx. That is what you have to find out. You can see that that is going to be a odd function. It is nothing but root 3 by 2 times x dx comes in between -1 to 1. That being odd, that should be equal to 0.
Yes.
Very good. So, similarly, u2 can be seen to be of the same kind. So, u2 u3 you can see that again becomes an odd function, you can check. So, that becomes 0. Ultimately, this u1 u2 u2 u3 u3 u1, these 3 inner products are going to become
And
0.
also here u2 will be in the span of u1.
Naturally.
Natural.
Yes.
v1 v2.
u3, yes.
Yes.
The span of u1 u2 u3 can be verified to be span of w1 w2 w3, because
Yes.
the very construction explains the same.
Yes.
By the construction itself, it is quite clear that the span of w1 w2 w3 and u1 u2 u3 are going to be same. So, this way, depending on the inner product available in the space, you have to move. So, finding norms is not that easy. It all depends on the inner product available in the space. So, you should be careful about not only the space, the structure, inner product available on that one should be taken care. Otherwise, you'll end
And
up.
another strength of this GSOP, Gram-Schmidt orthonormation process, is that the formula he has used is easily writable as an algorithm.
Yes.
Yes.
You can write a computer program easily for this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a strength
Additive
of
advantage.
this GSOP. Well, now in finite dimensional vector spaces, if we have a non-empty set, if you have a non-empty set consisting of a non-zero vector,
Okay.
that can be expanded to a basis in
Yes.
finite dimensional vector spaces.
Yeah.
Do you have such a situation here, sir, in inner product spaces?
Yeah, certainly. You start with any linear space for that matter. Let us say, for example, let us look into a finite dimensional vector space. Given any basis of that particular vector space, we can exploit that particular basis to construct an inner product structure on that particular X, thus making X to be an IPS. The method is very, very
So
simple.
in the finite dimensional
What would-
vector space, we always have an inner product on
Yes.
that.
Yes,
right?
that's what
Yes.
I say. Any finite dimensional vector space can be seen to be an inner product space with appropriate inner product defined via that particular basis. The method is very simple. We can speak orally also. For example, if V is a finite dimensional vector space and say U1, U2, etc., Un happens to be a basis for the vector space V, then you can make use, you can define an inner product on the vector space V as follows. You choose any two vectors X and Y from the vector space V. Because U1, U2, Un form a basis for the vector space V, X and Y can be written as linear combinations of these vectors. Let us say X is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to N Ai Ui, Y is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 Bi Vi. Then I can make use these Ais, Bis which are coming from the scalar field. Of course, that scalar field has to be either real field or complex field. That's one disadvantage. Then I define X comma Y inner product to be sigma I is equal to 1 to 1 Ai Bi. This particular formula successfully leads to an IP on that particular set X. So thus X becomes an inner product space. But I should mention once again that it is not the case with any general vector space over general field, but it's a vector space. If it happens to be a vector space over the field of real numbers or complex numbers, you can do it. Otherwise, you cannot do it.
Yeah.
Because IPSs are basically confined to these
Complex or
fields,
real?
real complex fields only. That's one disadvantage.
Okay. The GSOP, the Gram-Schmidt orthonormation process, it is saying that if we have a basis for a finite dimensional vector space, out of that we can construct an orthonormal basis,
Yeah.
right? So what we are doing is we are showing that these linear spans are equal. Linear span of the independent set of vectors is equal to the linear span of the orthonormal set of vectors.
Yes.
Means we are finding an orthonormal basis here.
Yeah.
So we are getting as a basis for R3. For R3 we have I bar, J bar, K bar.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an orthonormal basis.
Yeah.
So same situation
Yes,
we are able
yes.
to do for a finite dimensional vector space with the help of GSOP.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
That's
The point is, if we have one inner product or two inner product spaces,
Yes.
out of that can I generate
New spaces.
another inner product space? Is it possible?
Certainly. Certainly, that's one beautiful thing also, because when we talk about inner product spaces, unless there are such spaces plenty in number, I think making a big study on such spaces does not make any sense. So it's good. There is a beautiful technique which can be made use to produce newer and newer inner product spaces out of given few such spaces. For example, so let us look into X comma bracket 1 to be one inner product space with the inner product being bracket 1, and Y comma bracket 2 to be the inner product space Y with the inner product bracket 2. Then I can make use these two inner products to work for defining an inner product on the X cross Y. Let us take X cross Y to be the Cartesian products of X and Y. On that X cross Y, let us take two elements, namely X1 comma Y1, X2 comma Y2. For these two elements drawn from X cross Y, we define inner product, namely inner product X1 Y1 comma X2 Y2 to be equal to X1 comma X2 inner product under first inner product plus Y1 comma Y2 under that second inner product. You take this particular sum, this sum is going to successfully define an inner product on X cross Y, thus making X cross Y an inner product space. Therefore, out of any pair of inner product spaces, you have one such. For that matter, if you take one IPS X, X square is going to become one IPS. Through
And
X
sir,
square, you can
sir,
go through
if
X
we-
cube.
If we have a vector space X, how about the Cartesian product X cross X? Is it also a vector space? And if I have two vector spaces X cross Y, X and Y,
Yeah.
can I have another vector space X cross Y?
Yes, sir, certainly. We can make use such a
So-
similar technique to find such a. typically.
Okay, sir. Well, now we have the concept of complete orthonormal set.
Yes.
Can you tell something about that, madam?
A set A is said to be complete orthonormal set. A set of orthonormal vectors is said to be a complete orthonormal set if it is not contained in any other normal set, orthonormal set. That is, it is the maximum set.
Maximal
Maximal set.
orthonormal set.
Here, complete does not mean that Cauchy
But-
sequence
yes,
have
No,
to
no.
It
No.
has nothing to do
This
with
this
particular
completeness is the different.
point
That
of
yes.
complete orthonormal set.
Yes.
Here we expect that set not to be a proper subset of any other orthonormal.
Any
orthonormal
other,
set.
yes.
Exactly, it's a maximal orthonormal set in a way.
Maximal orthonormal set.
So, in a vector space, if it is non-trivial, means if it has more than other than
Zero
a
vector.
non-zero vector, at least one non-zero vector, can I have one complete orthonormal set?
Yes, one suppose if you take y is equal to x by norm x, that will be a unit vector. No, so that norm y is equal to 1. So, we can have orthonormal set.
Can an inner product space have more than one complete orthonormal sets? Complete
The question
orthonormal
is something
set?
different. Given some inner
Give-
product space with the with non-zero vectors in it, can you
Yes.
go for a complete orthonormal
Normal
set? That's
set,
what you are
yes.
asking, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's the question. Certainly, in some cases we can have, but not always. Given some inner product space, finding that complete orthonormal basis, orthonormal set, it's not always possible. In some cases, we can do so.
Actually, what I am asking is there possibility for more than one orthonormal set to exist in an inner product space? Is it possible?
There can be
There
several.
can be.
Out of single inner set with orthonormal elements, you can construct any subset to be
Yes.
one such type of set.
Okay, sir. Well, we were talking about the Hilbert spaces, and then we have talked about vector spaces first, and then we talked about norms on a vector space that has been seen as a distance. Out of a norm, we could define a distance, and that distance has brought geometric structure for the algebraic structure on a vector space. And inner products concept has helped us to deal with certain angles, like the right angles. And using these orthonormal vector concept, we are able to show that we can generate an orthonormal basis out of a given basis in final dimensional vector final dimensional case. Well, we are not able to meet
that you
Euler's
can,
Fisher theorem,
Yes.
but I have one doubt. Okay, we are coming to the end of the program. So, still you have completion of non-Hilbert spaces and so on. We are not able to go to that. So, here we wind up and thank one and all.